Halloween night 2019. I had just gotten home from work, too tired to hand out candy, but not tired enough to sleep. My wife was out of town visiting her sister, so it was just me, a bowl of candy on the porch, and a slasher movie playing low on the TV. Around 9:30, the knocks started again. At first, they were normal, light, rhythmic, just kids wanting candy. But after a while, I noticed something strange. The knocks always came in sets of 3, always spaced the same. I finally checked the door. Nobody there. The candy bowl was still full. I figured maybe some teens were messing around, so I turned off the porch light to signal we were done for the night. But the knocking didn't stop. 3 knocks. Pause. 3 more. I looked through the peephole. Nothing. Just the dark outline of my porch and the faint glow of the streetlight across the road. Then, as I turned away, my phone buzzed. Motion detected. Front door. The camera feed popped up, and I froze. There was someone standing there. Not a kid. Not even moving. Just a tall figure in a hood, facing the door. But when I looked back, through the peephole, the porch was empty again. I stared at that empty porch for what felt like a full minute. My phone still showed the live camera feed, frozen on the last frame of the tall figure, standing just a few feet from the door. But when I hit refresh, the porch was clear. No one. I stepped back, locked the deadbolt, and tried to shake it off. Probably just some idiot in a costume trying to scare people. It was Halloween after all. Half an hour later, I started hearing it again. Not knocking this time, but the sound of footsteps on the gravel walkway outside. Slow, dragging. Then came 3 more knocks. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. The TV flickered with the light from the movie, but the rest of the house was dead silent. After maybe 10 seconds, the sound stopped. I checked my phone again. No new notification. I waited, then switched to the side yard camera. There, near the bushes, a shape moving, just barely visible. Whoever it was had left the porch and was now creeping along the side of my house. I turned off the TV, grabbed my flashlight, and headed toward the kitchen window. From there, I could see part of the yard. The beam of the flashlight caught something, a reflection. Eyes, 2 wide, glassy eyes, staring back at me from behind the window outside. I jumped back so hard I dropped the light. When I looked again, they were gone. I called the police. The operator told me to stay on the line and lock all the doors until a patrol car arrived. While I was talking, I heard something fall in the living room. A picture frame, maybe. I crept toward the sound, whispering to the dispatcher that someone might be inside. When I reached the hallway, I saw movement, just a shadow at first, crossing the light from the kitchen. Then came a sound I'll never forget, a man's voice whispering from the dark. "This isn't your house." I backed away slowly, heart pounding. The front doorknob rattled, and from outside, through the thin crack of the blinds, I saw someone standing at the door again, the same hooded figure, motionless, as if waiting for permission to come in. But then I realized something that made my blood go cold. The front door was locked, so how did the voice come from behind me? I froze in the hallway, barely breathing. The front door was in front of me, locked, but the voice I'd just heard came from behind, near the living room. I turned slowly. For a second, I thought the dark had shapeshifted, that my eyes were playing tricks on me. But then I saw him, a tall man standing in the corner, the hood pulled low over his face. I couldn't see his eyes, but his head was tilted just slightly, like he was studying me. My mouth went dry. "I called the cops," I said. "They're already on the way." He didn't move. Then in the same low whisper, he said again, "This isn't your house." I blinked, backing toward the door. My phone was still in my hand. The dispatcher asking if I was safe. I couldn't even answer. The man took 1 step forward. Something about his movement was wrong. Stiff, deliberate, like he wasn't used to moving in his own body. "Get out!" I shouted, but my voice cracked. He took another step, and that's when the porch light flickered through the blinds. The sudden flash lit his face. Pale, thin, sunken eyes, and a long scar running from his temple to his jaw. And then he smiled. It wasn't wide or exaggerated, just slow, a subtle curl of his lips that didn't match the deadness in his eyes. My back hit the front door. I fumbled with the lock, threw it open, and bolted outside. The yard was empty. No footsteps behind me. No movement. Just that eerie, frozen quiet. Within a minute, the patrol car turned the corner, lights flashing. I ran to them, gasping, trying to explain what happened. The officers searched the house, top to bottom. Nothing. No footprints inside. No signs of forced entry. No broken locks or windows. But when one of them checked the door frame, he looked confused. "Sir," he said, shining his light at the number plate above the porch. "You sure this is your house?" I turned. The numbers didn't match. Somehow, in the dark, I had pulled into the wrong driveway. I didn't even live there. I stared at those house numbers, not understanding. Same street, same porch light, same mailbox shape, but one number off. The officers said the homeowners weren't around. They were out of town for the weekend. I showed them my license to prove I didn't live there, and they gave me this uneasy look. Not suspicion, but confusion. One of them asked, "If this isn't your house, who called 911? I pulled up the call log. The timestamp was there, but my phone showed no outgoing call, just a missed call from my own number. They escorted me to my actual house 2 doors down. Everything was normal. My car parked outside, porch light on, same candy bowl on the steps, except the front door was wide open. Inside, everything was still. Nothing stolen, nothing broken, just quiet. I went to lock the door and froze. On the wood, just below the handle, were 3 small dents, knocks, perfectly spaced. That night, I checked my security footage again. For most of the evening, the porch was empty. But at 9:30, the camera caught something for exactly 3 seconds. A man in a hood, standing perfectly still. He looks directly into the lens. And then, just before the feed cuts out, he whispers, "Wrong house." I used to babysit for a family who lived in one of those quiet suburban neighborhoods where every house looks the same. Trimmed lawns, motion lights, and too many windows. It was Halloween night, and the parents were going to a party across town. They left around 7:30, told me to help myself to candy, and said their 5-year-old Noah was already asleep upstairs. The first hour was easy. I watched a movie, ignored the occasional doorbell from trick-or-treaters, and scrolled through my phone. Then, around 9:45, there was a knock at the door. 3 knocks. Slow. I wasn't expecting anyone, but I figured maybe it was a late kid wanting candy. When I opened the door, the porch was empty. The bowl of candy was untouched. I turned to go back inside and heard another knock, only this time, it came from the back door. The kitchen light flickered, and I felt the thick, heavy silence that fills a house when something isn't right. I called out, "Hello?" Nothing. Then, from upstairs, I heard little footsteps running across the floor. I rushed to check on Noah, but when I opened his bedroom door, he was still sound asleep. That's when I heard it again. 3 slow knocks, coming from inside the hallway closet behind me. I stood frozen in the hallway, staring at that narrow white closet door. The sound had been clear. 3 slow, heavy knocks. No mistaking it. The house was silent again. I stepped closer, heart pounding so loud, it drowned out everything else. The door was shut tight, no light coming from underneath. For a second, I thought maybe I imagined it. Maybe it was pipes or the house settling. But then I remembered something. The closet didn't have any pipes running through it. It was just a narrow space for coats and boxes. I reached out and turned the handle. It was locked. I didn't even know it had a lock. My hands were shaking, but I tried to pull anyway. It didn't budge. I called out, "Who's in there?" My voice cracked halfway through. Silence. Then, faintly, from the other side, a whisper. It wasn't a word, exactly. Just a sound, like breath. I stumbled backward and grabbed my phone. The parents had told me the alarm code, so I went downstairs and checked the panel. It said all secure, every window and door locked. I texted the mom, "Hey, I think I heard something weird upstairs. Closet door locked. Did you guys keep anything in there?" She didn't answer. It was 10:18 p.m. when the knocking came again. 3 knocks, slow, deliberate. Only this time, I was standing in the living room, directly below the upstairs hallway. It was coming from above me. I looked up toward the ceiling, then at the baby monitor on the coffee table. The little green light flickered. The screen showed Noah's room, dark, quiet, his small shape under the blanket. Then, for a second, the picture glitched. A shadow crossed the room, tall, thin, too big to be Noah. When the image returned to normal, the closet door in the corner of the camera was slightly open. My phone buzzed. A text from the mom finally came through. "That closet shouldn't be locked. There's no lock on it." I didn't even finish reading before I heard it again. 3 slow knocks, but they weren't upstairs anymore. They were on the basement door behind me. I didn't move for at least a full minute. The sound came again. 3 deep, heavy knocks from the basement door, each one louder than the last. The baby monitor went static for a second, then went dark. I turned toward the basement, gripping my phone like a weapon. The light from the kitchen barely reached the door, leaving most of it swallowed in shadow. I called out, "Who's down there?" No answer, just the faint sound of something shifting below. Every instinct in me said to grab the kid and run, but something about that door. It felt like if I turned my back on it, whatever was on the other side would come out. So I stepped closer. The knob started to turn, slow, creaking with pressure. I screamed, "I already called the cops!" The movement stopped. For a few seconds I could hear breathing, long, deep breaths, pressed right up against the other side of the door. I backed away, grabbing the nearest thing I could find, a lamp. I was shaking so hard I could barely hold it. Then, a loud bang from upstairs. Noah. I ran up the stairs 2 at a time. His bedroom door was wide open, the nightlight flickering. The window was shut, the curtains still. He was sitting upright in bed, eyes wide, looking past me toward the hallway. "What's wrong?" I whispered, trying not to scare him. He pointed behind me. "There's a man in the closet." I turned. The hallway closet, the same one that was locked earlier, was now wide open. Inside, there was nothing but coats hanging neatly, no footprints, no sign of anyone. Then I heard it again, faint, from the baby monitor, still lying on the table downstairs. 3 slow knocks, except this time, it wasn't coming from a door. It was coming from the speaker itself. I unplugged the monitor and threw it on the couch, but the sound didn't stop. 3 slow knocks, muffled, rhythmic, echoing like it was coming from inside the house itself. I grabbed Noah and bolted out the front door. We waited across the street until the parents came home. They thought I was overreacting until they saw the hallway closet. The door was closed again and locked. When the dad forced it open with a screwdriver, all the coats were gone. The space was completely empty, except for a single footprint, a bare one, too large to be mine. They called the police. Officers searched the house, attic, basement, nothing. Every window locked from the inside, but the officer who checked the baby monitor came back pale. He said it was still powered on. The screen flickered and showed static. Then, clear as day, 3 knocks echoed through the speaker, followed by a faint whisper, "Don't open the door." A few weeks later, the family moved out. Sometimes, when I drive past that street on Halloween, I slow down, and every year, I swear the porch light of that house flickers 3 times, always in the same rhythm. 3 knocks, pause, 3 more. Halloween night, 2021. My husband was working the late shift, so it was just me at home with our dog, Milo. We lived at the edge of town, where the houses were far apart, and the streetlights didn't reach the end of the block. Around 8 p.m., the trick-or-treaters stopped coming. I left the bowl of candy on the porch and settled in to watch a movie. Halfway through, Milo lifted his head and growled. He's a quiet dog, the kind that only reacts when something's really wrong. I muted the TV and listened. Soft footsteps, right outside the front door. I checked the peephole. Nothing. Just the faint orange glow from the pumpkin on the steps. Then, knock, knock, knock. Slow. Heavy. I took a breath and opened the door a few inches, expecting a late trick-or-treater. There was a man standing at the edge of the porch. He was wearing a white plastic mask, completely blank with only eye holes cut out. His clothes were dark, almost blending into the night. I tried to sound calm. "Sorry, we're out of candy." He didn't move. He just tilted his head slowly to one side, like he was listening to something behind me. And then, without saying a word, he raised his hand and waved. For a second, I didn't know how to react. The man's hand stayed frozen mid-wave, his head still tilted, like he was waiting for me to respond. I forced a nervous laugh and said, "All right, happy Halloween," then shut the door and locked it. Milo barked once, low and sharp, then ran to the window beside the couch, growling. I peeked through the blinds. He was still there, standing at the edge of the porch, masked, completely still. I grabbed my phone and started recording, zooming in on him through the glass. The camera caught the faint shine of his mask and the way he slowly turned his head toward the window, toward me. I jumped back and nearly dropped the phone. A second later, the porch light flickered and went out. When it came back on, the man was gone. I thought maybe he'd finally left, but when I looked at my phone, there was a new notification. Motion detected. Backyard. My stomach dropped. I opened the app. The feed showed the small back patio, the porch swing swaying lightly in the wind, But behind it, in the shadows near the fence, I saw him again. That same white mask, glinting faintly. He was moving closer, one slow step at a time. I locked every door and window, then called 911. The dispatcher told me to stay on the line and wait inside until the officers arrived. While I was talking, I heard a soft scraping sound near the kitchen, like something brushing against the wall. Milo barked again, his fur standing up. The dispatcher asked, "Ma'am, are you still there?" But I barely heard her. The scraping had stopped. Then came a quiet thud from inside the house. I turned toward the hallway and saw a trail of small, wet footprints leading from the back door to the stairs. The dispatcher's voice came through the phone. "Stay somewhere safe. Help is minutes away," I whispered. "He's inside." Milo started barking at the stairs. Then, above us, the unmistakable sound of a floorboard creaking. He wasn't outside anymore. I didn't dare move. Milo was growling at the stairs, the fur on his neck standing straight. Another creak echoed from above, slow and deliberate, like someone was testing each step. The dispatcher kept talking in my ear, but I couldn't hear her over the pounding of my heartbeat. Then, a voice came from upstairs, low, calm, male. "Hello?" It wasn't a shout. It sounded like someone trying to sound normal. I whispered, "Who's there?" No response. Just one more creak. Closer. I grabbed the nearest thing I could, a kitchen knife, and crouched behind the couch. Still on the phone, Milo started barking uncontrollably, rushing toward the stairs, but halfway there, he froze and whimpered, backing away. The house went dead silent. Then the front door knob rattled. I turned just in time to see the door handle slowly turning. The dispatcher's voice crackled. "Ma'am, officers are 2 minutes away. Do not engage. Stay hidden." The door handle clicked once, then stopped. I held my breath. Through the frosted glass pane beside the door, I could see a shape, tall, motionless, facing inward, that same white mask. But how? He was upstairs. I'd heard him upstairs. Then it hit me. There were 2 of them. As I backed away, the sound returned. Heavy footsteps descending the stairs, slow and synchronized with the tapping on the front door. They were moving together. Milo barked again, lunging forward, and something slammed against the door, hard enough to rattle the frame. The dispatcher shouted, "They're outside!" Officers are arriving now. But I wasn't looking at the door anymore. I was looking at the staircase, where a second white mask was slowly peering through the banister, eyes hollow and unmoving. And then, both knocks stopped. Total silence. When the officers burst through minutes later, both men were gone. No footprints, no damage, just 2 masks, one at the bottom of the stairs, and one sitting neatly on the kitchen counter. The police stayed for over an hour, checking every door, every corner of the house. Nothing. No fingerprints, no forced entry, no camera footage showing how they'd gotten in. But one of the officers noticed something odd. Both of the masks, the one on the stairs and the one in the kitchen, had different faces. One was blank, smooth, expressionless. The other had a faint smile carved into it, almost like someone had scratched it in by hand. They took them for evidence, promised to patrol the area for a few nights. I didn't sleep. My husband got home around 3 a.m. I told him everything. He checked the locks again, even nailed a board across the back door. We sat awake until sunrise, waiting for another knock that never came. A few days later, the police returned the footage from our doorbell camera. Most of it was normal. Trick-or-treaters, kids laughing, parents waiting on the sidewalk. But around 8:06 p.m., the timestamp froze for half a second, and there he was, the man in the white mask, standing on the porch, perfectly still. Then the frame glitched, and a second figure appeared right beside him. Same height, same build, same mask. But just before the video ended, one of them tilted his head toward the camera, and underneath the plastic, you could faintly see his lips move. "See you next year." Every Halloween night, my grandmother used to say the same thing. Never blow out the last candle before midnight. She claimed it kept the spirits from crossing over, that every flame lit on Halloween was like a tiny barrier, keeping something on the other side of the dark. I always thought it was superstition, until last year. My girlfriend Emma and I had just moved into a small rental house outside of town. We'd spent the day decorating, carving pumpkins and handing out candy to the few kids who came by. By 11:30, the night was calm, the street quiet, the candles flickering low in the windows. I was about to go to bed when Emma laughed and said, "Guess your grandma would hate this," and blew out the last candle on the table. Every window in the house rattled. The lights flickered. We both stood there, staring at each other. "Old wiring," I said, trying to sound casual, but the air felt wrong. Thick, cold. That's when we heard a soft tapping at the window. We looked. Nothing there. Just the reflection of the candle's smoke rising in the glass. Then the tapping came again, harder this time, right below the sill. Emma whispered, "Do you hear that?" And just as I nodded, the candle on the table relit itself. We both froze. The wick burned tall, steady, like it had never gone out. Emma whispered, "Did you light that?" I shook my head. "You saw me. It was out." She laughed nervously, but it didn't sound right. "It's probably the draft," except the windows were shut, and there wasn't a hint of wind inside the house. Then the power flickered again, lights dimming, fridge humming, everything pulsing in rhythm with the candle's flame. When the house went dark for a second, we both saw something reflected in the window, a figure, standing just outside. It wasn't clear, just a faint outline, tall, still, head slightly tilted. Emma ran to the window and yanked the curtains shut. "That's it! I'm calling the landlord," she muttered, but her voice was trembling. I went to check the porch. Nothing there. No footprints, no breeze, no sound at all. The air smelled faintly of burnt wax. When I came back inside, Emma had lit the rest of the candles again. She said it made her feel better. The room filled with that warm glow, the kind that usually makes a place feel safe. But this time, it didn't. It just made the shadows darker. At 11:47 p.m., the kitchen clock stopped ticking, completely froze. We didn't notice right away because the tapping had started again, this time from the hallway wall. Slow, methodical, like knuckles rapping from inside the plaster. Milo, our neighbor's dog who never barked, started howling outside, long and drawn out. The candle flames bent in one direction, like a breath was passing over them. Emma whispered, "Maybe we should just go outside until midnight." Before I could answer, the largest candle on the table, the one she'd blown out earlier, sputtered violently. Wax splashed across the wood, forming strange curved shapes that looked almost like letters. E-L-I. And then the flame snapped out, plunging the house into total darkness. At that exact moment, every other candle in the room went out too, not one by one, but all at once. The tapping stopped. We just stood there, holding our breath. Then, from the hallway, a single whisper came through the dark. "You shouldn't have blown it out." I froze where I was standing. The whisper came from the hallway, soft, calm, too close. Emma grabbed my arm. "Who said that?" I didn't answer. I couldn't. We both turned toward the hallway, where a faint orange glow was pulsing from the floorboards, like light bleeding through from beneath the house. Emma whispered, There's no crawl space, right?" Before I could reply, something slammed against the wall from the inside. The whole picture frame rattled. I shouted, "Who's there?" The only response was the sound of the clock ticking again. Slow, deliberate, 1 second at a time. Except it was now reading 11:59. Emma ran for the front door, but the handle wouldn't turn. It was like someone was holding it shut from the other side. I tried the back. Same thing. Every lock jammed. The smell of burnt wax filled the air again. Then, from the table behind us, a sound, a faint hiss. The candle that had gone out twice before had lit itself again, only this time, the flame wasn't steady. It flickered violently, throwing tall, dancing shadows across the walls. One of them didn't move with the others. It stood apart, a tall, narrow silhouette, right at the end of the hall, still and solid, even as the candlelight shook. Emma whispered, "Please tell me you see that." I nodded slowly. "Don't move." The figure began to drift forward, slow and jerky, as if every step cost it effort. It stopped halfway down the hall. Then, in a voice that sounded like wind scraping through the walls, it said, "One more minute." The lights flickered again, and all at once every candle in the house reignited, bright, blinding orange. The figure vanished. When the glow dimmed, the hallway was empty. The clock struck 12 o'clock, and every single door in the house unlocked at once. We didn't talk for a long time after that. We just stood there, staring at the clock as it ticked past midnight. Slow, steady, normal again. Every candle was still burning. Flames calm now, as if nothing had happened. Emma whispered, "Can we just leave them like that?" I nodded. We didn't touch a thing. Around 2 a.m., after we finally calmed down, I blew them out one by one, carefully, quietly. Nothing strange happened. For weeks, we tried to pretend it was just stress, bad wiring, tricks of the light. Maybe carbon monoxide making us see things. But every night since, I've noticed something small. A candle relighting itself when I walk past. A faint, waxy smell in the middle of the night. Sometimes, when the house is dead silent, I can hear soft tapping from the walls. 3 taps. Always 3. Last Halloween, I didn't celebrate. No decorations, no lights, no candles. But when midnight came, a single flame appeared in the window. One I hadn't lit. It burned until morning. And written faintly in the soot on the glass was a single word, smeared like it had been traced by a fingertip. E-L-I. The name that almost formed in the wax that night. I never met anyone by that name, but sometimes I think he's still waiting for me to blow it out again.